Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan and welcome to the latest episode of our entertainment show. As you know, we've been previewing and airing all for the last 2 or 3 weeks about the exciting upcoming premiere of season 2 of our Stargate Cult Classics documentary. We're back for another season after season 1 was such a huge success. 38 episodes in total. As you know, we've spoken to actors and actresses from Stargate the movie, Stargate SG1, Stargate Atlantis, Stargate Origins, and Stargate Universe as well. And I'm delighted for season 2. We've such wonderful characters and actors lined up for the season ahead. And our special guest on this episode is the one and only Aaron Craven. If you don't remember Aaron, he has appeared on both Stargate Atlantis and Stargate SG1. In Stargate SG1, he has appeared in the episodes Rules of Engagement. He played the Captain Kyle Rodgers, one of the young Tok'ra soldiers, mimicking a young Jaffa soldiers, mimicking the young Stargate command. He also played the character Martar in the episode Line of Stand, and he also appeared in Stargate Atlantis season 5 episode 12 as a Commander Wraith. Aaron, first of all, for you, I know you appeared in Stargate SG1 towards the middle of its seasons. Had you previously tried out for previous roles, or was the Kyle Rodgers role your first sort of break as a promising sort of young actor? Had you to fight hard to get on such a popular show like Stargate SG1, or had you previously auditioned for roles and maybe the directors or the casting directors have remembered you and thought of this role for you as Kyle Rodgers?
That role in Rules of Engagement was actually my first ever professional film and TV job, and I believe it was my actual first ever film TV audition, if you can believe that. That's my memory of it. I was just out of theater school at the time and was, training in film and TV, but was really, really young and inexperienced. And I walked into this audition with like 10 pages of dialogue, and somehow I guess I got the part. I was so inexperienced. Myself and one of the other actors on the show, Dion Johnstone, who I've become great friends with and kept in contact with over the years, we were both pretty inexperienced in film and TV. So they actually brought us out to the Stargate SG1 set where we were filming the previous episode, just so we could, I guess they thought we were nervous or had never been on sets before. So they wanted to expose us to the cast and crew and just kind of get us out on set before we even actually shot the episode. So yeah, it was my first ever film TV job. I think I shot for like 8 or 9 days, and it was like going to film school for free. I was learning and cutting my teeth as a professional film TV actor at the same time.
So someone tells you your first sort of TV acting job and you're going to be playing at a role opposite the camera, maybe 100 yards from you, is going to be the one and only MacGyver himself. Not a bad sort of first gig to say, but alongside the credits, say Richard Dean Anderson beside the name.
Oh yeah, I'd watched MacGyver growing up. So as soon as I showed up on the set, there he was. It was it was pretty surreal, as I remember.
And I suppose, Aaron, in terms of the character obviously landing the part and in the arriving on set, and in terms of the portrayal of this sort of character, had you any sort of an idea that you wanted to play it about it? Did you want to get it a sort of computer game type sort of teenage boys, that sort of war sort of thing, or how had you envisioned how you want to bring this sort of character to life? Had you any ideas obviously going through your head? I suppose you had a few, given it was your first acting sort of break, of how you wanted to do it, or was it entailed by you step by step how you should portray it?
We're going back 20 years, but from memory, I probably had a character biography written and lots of backstory created. I don't remember the specifics, to be totally honest, but when I was a young actor, I just remember every time I would get a job and go to set, I would have tons of details. So I took some weapons training before we shot that episode. And I think I studied a little bit of military, jargon, and watched some clips. And yeah, so I kind of prepared for it from a military perspective. But as I remember, I was extremely nervous and extremely thorough in prepping for going to set.
And Aaron, obviously playing the role of Kyle Rodgers so early in Stargate SG1, had you envisioned maybe when you got the call to come back and maybe try out for, or was it on your own behalf that you tried out for this sort of different character? Obviously, coming back to a show where you represented character, you obviously have to sort of change in some sort of different perceptions, that you won't be sort of pigeonholed as the character that you were before. Had you any ideas on how you were going to go about that? And firstly, how did that come about? Was that out of the blue?
No, that second episode was directed by Peter DeLuise, who is a colleague and a friend, and I think I just changed my look, because I remember my hair was a bit longer, I was older, and I believe I had some time to actually grow a beard, so I was a little bit more kind of ragged and disheveled. I wanted to take that baby face character from Rules of Engagement and try to, I know that the fans obviously like to see actors and guess where they were, and if they see them playing a different role, they point it out, but I wanted to make it hard on them and to try to make the characters aesthetically and tone-wise as different as possible. So yeah, that Matar character was a brooder and a sort of vigilante and very aggressive, whereas the character I played in Rules of Engagement was like, young and optimistic, and so yeah, they were quite different, and I tried to give it a lot of delineation between the two parts.
And Aaron, in terms of Stargate SG1, for many people, young actors, there was two probably big roles in Vancouver at the time in terms of sci-fi. It was Stargate and it was Battlestar Galactica. And I suppose Stargate, obviously, having that on your credits, did it open up many doors and opportunities for you going forward? Obviously, that first gig in the resume, that you can put that down. Did you feel that it made doors open easier when you went for further interviews on the back of it?
It didn't have any connection to Battle. I never ended up doing Battlestar Galactica, but Vancouver at that time was quite a sci-fi town. So if you could kind of play that dark sci-fi kind of tone, it did carry over to other shows. I mean, Battlestar was quite a different. Stargate's a little bit more sort of melodramatic, and Battlestar was very subtle. But yeah, certainly having that experience, more than just on the resume, but just actually getting on a set with those actors and having that many days of work out of the gate as a young actor, that definitely carried over to my early career for sure, because I gained a lot of confidence just off of doing that one job.
And did you notice the difference then when you appeared on the spin-off shows, Stargate Atlantis? And one thing that people I've interviewed in terms of people that were on Stargate Atlantis and Stargate SG1, now they do revel and say both sets were fantastic, but they were amazed when they went to see the actual set of Stargate Atlantis in terms of how Atlantis was sort of laid out in terms of the studio. They said it was just absolutely breathtaking in terms of what the design and the sets and locations were. Was that something that you sort of visioned in terms of yourself, in terms of the difference between the sets, obviously?
The set design on Stargate, all of the franchises, was incredible. So the Rules of Engagement episode was mostly exterior, as I remember. We were shooting out in a place called Stokes Pit, which is quite a bit outside of Vancouver. It's sort of almost like a, very kind of rocky gravel and trees, like those typical Stargate exteriors. And then the set for where I play Matar, it was an interior built set. And I just, looking like sort of an ancient mystical village, the degree and the detail of that set design was just, when I walked onto that soundstage, it's one of the most incredible sets I ever laid my eyes on. Some of those interior sets that they built on that show were just amazing. It's so different. I mean, Rules of Engagement was light, it was outdoors, it was daytime, it was very action based, whereas the second one was very candlelight, nighttime, ancient mystical village. The tones were way different, and they did a great job on that show creating those different worlds just with their switching aesthetic. So yeah, it was a real privilege to be able to come back more than once.
And in terms of your role, in terms of Stargate Atlantis, playing that sort of commander, sort of Wraith, sort of such, tell me about wardrobe and costume design for that. I imagine that was an awful lot of fun. I imagine you had the early mornings to come in terms of that, and in terms of what was going on your face. You were seeing your own reflection in the sort of mirror for the first time. Was it a bit jaw-dropping?
Yeah, I mean, when you do a role like that, I mean, with those Wraith characters had the long fingernails as well. So I had the kind of the glue-on prosthetics on my fingers, and it ended up being a real challenge to go to the bathroom. Was the biggest thing I remember. But then having the contacts lenses in, the FX people would say, oh, you know, a lot of people freak out when they put those in your eyes, and they were really big and thick and kind of daunting to deal with. The hair, the head casting for, you know, the latex face was an intensive process, but I loved it. I mean, I loved playing that character. You could be, there's a thing in the acting world called mask work, and the premise is that if you put on a mask, it kind of liberates you to act in a bigger way and kind of be less inhibited, because your actual face is hidden, but the mask kind of does a lot of the work for you. And I certainly found that when I did that role. Once I had all the stuff on, the GAC, the FX makeup and everything, you just stride into a room and you feel like, you know, the baddest ass alien in the universe wearing all that stuff. Yeah.
And
so
Aaron,
it was that was a fun job.
And Aaron, when you have that sort of costume on, maybe for 12, 13-hour day sort of shoot, does it actually physically take a toll on the body? Are you sweating with all that sort of stuff under? Are you actually losing sort of weight? Is it a sort of exercise sort of thing as well?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I probably lost 5 to 7 pounds in the shooting of that job. You're sweating. And I seem to remember shooting it in summer as well. So if I wasn't in the air-conditioned downstage, I was outside and yeah. So you get hot, you're in the makeup chair at, you know, 4 o'clock in the morning. It's very taxing. And some actors find it quite pushing, but I scuba dive. So when you scuba dive in depths in cold water and lack of visibility and a lot of gear on, it kind of gets you used to that sort of claustrophobia. So I found there was a bit of a crossover. I was able to kind of stay calm, and the scuba diving was a good foundation for me, being able to wear all that stuff for hours on end and not kind of feel panicked, claustrophobic, irritable. Yeah, I loved it.
And I know, Aaron, we have the sort of crossover between some of the directors and studio producers that were on sort of both shows, but obviously it's a different cast. And in terms of working alongside the Stargate SG1 with Michael Shanks and Christopher Judge and Richard Dean Anderson, then obviously going to Stargate SG1, you've Joe Flanagan, Rachel Luttrell, Jason Momoa. Did this almost seem like no difference at all, or did you feel the sort of subtle touches that these were they're trying to represent a different version of their sort of Stargate?
Yeah, I mean, the actors were great on both. I had a great time working with both sets of cast. I think the overall tone was consistent with Brad Wright and the other producers being on all the spinoffs. So, yeah, it was quite a different experience, because there was a large gaps between those characters on those different episodes of SG1 and then of Atlantis. So each time I would come back in, you know, some actors would do a recurring role, or they'd be there consistently for like a season, whereas I kind of spaced it out over many years. I came in when I was really young, and then about 7 years later I did another character, and then I think it was maybe 4 or 5 years after that I came back and played a Wraith on Atlantis. So it was almost like, it's kind of like starting again each time, but because the producers had such a well-oiled machine and such a family sense on the set, at the same time, it felt like just revisiting every single time.
Aaron, I'll just ask you about one scene in particular in terms of rules of engagement. The projection of the 7'5", must be 9 foot Apophis, sort of lurking over sort of you in terms of, was that done on green screen or in terms of shooting, or how was that sort of projected or done at the time? It's just something that, because obviously you're out in the middle of a sort of as you said, an open sort of area in terms of that. So I'm just wondering, was that played in afterwards, the scene, or brought in, or how was that sort of done?
Yeah, it was laid in afterwards. And as an actor on those kinds of shows, those sort of sci-fi shows, you really learn to use your imagination, because I remember very clearly how that was shot. Can you swear on this program? I don't know what the language restriction is. Or should I keep it clean?
Keep it clean, yeah.
Okay. I got you. So as I remember, there was an assistant director holding up a broomstick and a couple of broomsticks at different levels. So we were, all of us standing in that field, we're looking at just some broomsticks. And I remember the old school director yelling out from Video Village, "All right, there's the big effing alien. Just keep your eyes on him. Look shocked. Look in awe." And he's just yelling these things as we're all sitting there staring at broomsticks. And as an actor,
staring at broomsticks,
yeah, exactly. You're often just looking at an X on a wall or somebody holding up their hand. And of course, once they layer the music and the CGI and everything in, it looks great. But while you're doing it, you have to get over your inhibition and just trust that, you can sell your use of imagination and it will appear great on screen.
And in terms of Stargate SG1, in terms of your own memories, is there any sort of unique sort of story, even Atlantis as well, that sort of makes you laugh, makes you smile to this day, in terms of that's personal to you that no one's not aware about if they hadn't seen the TV series, or something that sort of strikes in your head in terms of when you think back that in terms of even interaction with a cast member?
The first actor who I just remember thinking, that actor is such a pro, and I want to act like them in my career, was when I worked with Amanda Tapping. And I remember specifically there was one scene that we were shooting. I don't think she had any lines, and here she is as a series regular. She was sick, and her dog had actually, I think, scratched her, so she had kind of a cut on her face that they sort of covered up with makeup. But so she had a cut open face. She was sick. And most actors that are series regulars, if they're off camera, they just leave the scene and they go back to the trailer and they just let a stand-in be off camera. And I remember I'm sitting here like 24 years old, my first gig, and she says, and it's pouring rain, and she says to me, "Aaron, I'll stick around. Do you want me to stick around for your eye line?" And she did. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, that's the kind of pro that I want to be, just totally there for the other actor. To this day, it's one of the sweetest, most generous things that a fellow actor's ever done. And it's made an impression on me. So that's one story that definitely jumps out.
And Aaron, I suppose time is nearly catching up on us now, but one final question for you. Let's pretend there was a Stargate encyclopedia, a sort of dictionary as such, and they put your characters, Kyle Rodgers and Matar, and obviously I put them instead of Commander Wraith, because we all know the Wraith in terms of what their personality was like. But let's pretend they left two blank sentences under Kyle Rodgers and Matar in terms of those fictional characters. What would you like those two sentences to read in terms of describing?
For Kyle Rodgers, I would describe him as committed and a leader and optimistic and vulnerable. And with the Matar character, I would describe him as intense and brooding and brainwashed. And those are the because he was kind of like, that character was sort of almost under a spell that he was acting like a vigilante in kind of a daze. So in playing him, I always thought of like a religious zealot, that kind of vibe. So yeah, more than a sentence, I think adjectives kind of jump to mind when I think back on those characters.
On that note, Aaron Craven, an absolute pleasure talking to you on the airwaves to relive your memories of your time in the Stargate universe, appearing in Stargate SG1 in the episodes Rules of Engagement and Line in Sand, and also Line in the Sand, and also appearing as a Commander Wraith in season 5 of Stargate Atlantis. No doubt, Aaron, this is only a beginning of your journey in the sci-fi world, and who knows, with a new production of a Stargate series rumored to be in the line and a new movie venture to be coming out soon, we could find you portraying a new role in the near distant future. But for the moment, Aaron Craven, God bless, take care and stay safe.
You too. Thanks, James.
Thank you.